Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Let's Talk podcast with me and David. And this is a very special show because we're actually celebrating an anniversary. For you guys who've been watching this channel for a long time, the Let's Talk podcast, way back when Matt used to do the show with me, we were kind of in the middle of the James Bond videos when he decided he didn't want to do this anymore. And David, he was just shamrock balls to me at the time, decided, he'd do it with me. So he jumped in and replaced Matt. And we've been doing this for about a year now, right, David?
Yeah, that's right. You were gracious enough to ask me to come on and finish the series with you, and we done four, and we done four of them. But I enjoy doing them, John. And as I say, I do think we've came a good bit since then, because obviously, I'd only ever talked to you in messages. I hadn't spoke to you face to face, well, over video like this. And so that very first episode we done, which was on our Majesty Secret Service, that was basically the first time me and you had ever talked to each other. And I remember being very concerned that you wouldn't be able to understand my accent, but I think everything went okay.
Yeah, I think everything went fine. The only thing that we've really improved on is, now we do it on StreamYards and, you got a better microphone now. And I think we have a better repertoire, I guess they call it, where, we know each other a little bit more now.
Yeah, we know each other's personalities, I think, and we know each other's kind of what would you say, sense of humor. And I think we've got very similar sense of humors. And also as well, what I've found over the streams we've done for almost a year now is that I think we've got a very kind of similar taste in movies as well.
Oh yeah.
In regards to who we like, it's very similar. Even though there's about 10 years between us. I remember I think you'd done a video of your collection, and you were going through a lot of your movies, and I remember thinking that I think you've seen a hell of a lot more movies than myself, to be perfectly honest. But the movies that we seem to get very kind of excited about talking about and very passionate about, I think that those are the ones that we have very similar looks on.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is with us. It's like I watch a lot of movies, but the certain movies I have a passion for, it seems to overlap with a lot of the movies that you have a passion for. And one of the franchises we both love is the James Bond franchise. And it was supposed to just be a James Bond movie show, and then we kind of decided that we were going to dive into other movies. And I don't know if it was the first one we did, but I think back on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I really love that episode that we did.
Yeah, I am a big James Bond fan, and I didn't realize how much of a James Bond fan I was until recent times. In the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, I'd always kind of liked Bond, and I think I was a bit of a snob for a while, where I always felt as if Connery was my Bond, and those were the only ones that were worth watching. And then I only ever watched them, and I think it was Skyfall. I seen Skyfall. We got it was a job I was doing at the time. They took the whole company to go and watch Skyfall, so it was around 2012, and first time I'd watched a Bond movie in years, and I really enjoyed it. And I'd already seen the next Casino Royale and stuff. I thought it was okay. But that kind of got me back in the Bond again, because then I went and I started watching the Connery ones again, and I decided that I wanted to watch the Moore ones again. And that is when I give Roger Moore, could you say, a second chance or a first chance? And I had this newfound appreciation for Roger Moore James Bond movies, and now I every year I would watch a couple of Bond movies. And I actually get into kind of like a bit of a Bond mood in around springtime every single year. I don't know why. And I went back and I just, out of curiosity, watched a few of our early episodes. And look, I thought we'd done pretty decent. And of course, then I think Jaws 4 or Jaws 2 was coming out on 4K. And I'd suggested, would you mind doing an episode on Jaws 2? And you had said, of course. And I think after that, that was where it took off, where we were just going to pick a movie and discuss it. And Close Encounters was one of them early ones as well.
Yeah, that's back when we were definitely with the James Bond movies taking a lot more notes, because just like you, I didn't really love Roger Moore. I knew of the James Bond franchise more because of the marathons that they would play in the United States, like as far as the Connery, Moore, Dalton ones. And then I was like Pierce Brosnan. That was my James Bond. That was the one I grew up with. And then Daniel Craig took over. I remember the whole controversy with the blonde hair. That was such a big deal for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I always kind of kept up with the James Bond franchise, but I never liked Roger Moore. I really always felt like his movies were just, they never felt like I love the Sean Connery ones, then I love the Timothy Dalton ones, and then honestly, as much as I love Pierce Brosnan, I think he's a great James Bond. He doesn't have that many good movies. GoldenEye is one of my favorites, but then they just start declining in strength after that. But after doing these rewatches, we're now 3 movies into the to the Roger Moore ones, and I'm really appreciating Roger Moore a lot more.
Yeah, it's really funny you saying about was that Pierce Brosnan was like your Bond. I mean, when I was growing up, I always remember Roger Moore, I suppose, was my Bond, even though I was very young at the time. He was the one who was always on television, but I always remember the likes of the Timothy Dalton Bonds being released in the cinema, and then there was a big gap between the end of his tanager as Bond and GoldenEye, and I think I was a mid teenager by then, and I just kind of fell out of the whole James Bond type of thing. It just didn't appeal to me at all. So that's why I've never really seen any of the Pierce Brosnan ones. So, but I still need to watch them. I did start to watch GoldenEye one night, to be honest, and I switched it off. I didn't like it, but I need to go back and watch it.
That's actually funny you brought that up, because that was something I was going to ask you about, because we have that age gap, but then like I wasn't alive for that big gap. I think it's 87 and 96 when there's no James Bond movies. Dalton was supposed to do more and they kind of switched off. Something happened and I wasn't there, so I was kind of young. And then GoldenEye came out. I was playing Nintendo 64, the video game, so that's how it kind of came to James Bond. But for you had to sit through a long period. I was wondering how James Bond was talked about during that downtime.
So it was 89, wasn't it? 89 and 95. Or was it 96? 85, I think.
That's
so
maybe 95.
Yeah, I think it was. What was the downtime like? I'm trying to remember, because I was 8 in 89, and I remember like the ads and stuff for License to Kill and things like that. I can't even remember the first time I seen License to Kill, to be honest with you. And then I just remember there being the talk of GoldenEye and Pierce Brosnan playing James Bond, but I used to go to the cinema every weekend, and I never crossed my mind to go and watch it. I don't know. I think I think at that time as well, John, going to the cinema, there was other kind of blockbusters and stuff that you were wanting to go and watch. I don't know. I just never appealed to me to go and watch it.
That makes sense, especially that's 89. So, I mean, we got a lot of great sequels that year. 89 is, we've talked about 89 a lot here. So it makes sense that one, that's more adult, especially if you were 8 years old. You're not going to want to go see a Timothy Dalton James Bond movie at that time.
No, well, listen, we've talked about it before in the pod. The summer of 89 was dominated by Batman. Every kid wanted to go and watch Batman. And plus, as well, I think that License to Kill might have been a 15 as well. It's one of the most violent Bond movies that's ever been made. One of the most darkest Bond movies that's ever made. So, there may have been talk about Bond during that summer, but no, like every kid was talking about Batman. But by the time I got to 95, I remember actually being in secondary school, and there was kids that were interested in Bond, and I remember that Moby, do you know the artist Moby?
Yeah, I know Moby.
Yeah, now I don't know if this is in the movie GoldenEye, but he done a version of the James Bond theme for GoldenEye.
Maybe. I was actually talking about GoldenEye the other day because the guy who did the score for that is Eric Sara, and I love the GoldenEye score. It's one of my favorite Bond scores of all time, and I always see people actually knocking it. They'll actually compliment GoldenEye and be like, "Oh, the only thing that sucks is the score," and I'll be like, that sucks."
well, I remember having a CD, like a best hits of the 95 or something, and Moby had this remix of the Bond theme on that CD, and I remember that being played around 95 as well. But yes, you just mentioned the game. I remember the game. We actually did have the game. Me and my younger brother had the game, and I loved playing the game. I loved being able to pick the different characters, and the way the screen was split, and you had to kind of take each other out, and you could play it on a different level. It was like a snow level or whatever it was, and whoever sniped the other person first won the head-to-head.
That was always fun. I always loved playing GoldenEye split screen. That was great. I could always have those. I have great memories of that, and people still talk about GoldenEye. It's definitely the best James Bond video game we ever got. I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, well, that one sticks with me. I was starting to grow out of video games in the mid 90s, but that was one that really stuck with me, and I always enjoyed playing it. It was more kind of, I know there was a gameplay as well, but it was more the head to head. It was good that you could play off against each other like that.
Yeah, the story mode was basically just the movie playing out again. So, kind of just in animated form, but it was good. It was good. But yeah, you were mostly there for the multiplayer.
Yeah.
But one thing that was speaking about Batman, they filmed in Pinewood Studios. I think we should get on track and talk about this one, The Spy Who Loved Me. They filmed a lot of this in Pinewood Studios.
Yeah, of course, and where a lot of the Bond films were filmed, and they now have a massive 007 stage. So, first of all, what did you think of this movie, John? When was the last time you actually seen this before the rewatch for the pod?
So the first time I actually had seen this was in a marathon years and years ago, and I hadn't seen it probably since at least before I started dating my wife. So I'd say I was probably 16 years old. So it's been 16 years at the minimum since I saw this movie before. And I liked it way more this time. And one thing I was getting from this is like, it kind of felt very Dr. No-ish while I was watching it, and I enjoyed it for that. But I also didn't love this movie for certain reasons. So I would say this is more of a mixed bag for me. How did you feel about it?
Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed rewatching The Spy Who Loved Me again. I just think this is one of the essential Roger Moore James Bonds. This is the movie that actually he comes into his own in this movie. I think he actually peaks in this movie. I think he's no better.
No, I think that he gives his best performance that I've seen as James Bond in this movie. I have no issues with him. I have a little bit of issues with the villain, but the plot itself is fantastic. My biggest flaw, and I want just because I want to talk mostly positive about this movie because I really did enjoy it, is the score. I didn't love the score, and I'm wondering how you felt about it.
Yeah, I am not a big fan of this score. There's certain parts of the score that I do like, but for the most part, I don't particularly like it. Like, for example, the Bond 77 theme is one of the best. It's very funky and stuff like that. And but they use it about 3 or 4 times throughout the movie. And there's also a tune that's called, is it Driving to Atlantis? Something like that. I like that wee tune. But apart from that, it's not very memorable. There's very little cues in the movie of the score. And for a long time, I don't know why, I thought that John Barry done the score. And then when I was doing my research, I was like, oh, he didn't actually do it.
No, he didn't. And I think that honestly that might have helped it. It just feels very of the time. It dates the movie a lot. It feels like the 1970s in this. It feels like the most 1970s James Bond movie overall and style and tone, but the score is doing a lot of that. And the one that I was like, that just kind of took me back for a second. I was like, wow, was in the skiing scene early in the movie, and they have the score playing. And I wrote down in my notes, way too much cowbell.
well, I love that skiing scene at the start. The scene's brilliant at the start where he's with the girl and the watch, and he's kissing her. He's like looking at the watch. Did you see the state of that watch with like the message coming out of it?
Yeah.
And when he's leaving, she's like, "But James, I need you," and he says, "So does England." But they ever say, Roger? But you see Roger, where he's got like a green screen behind him. He's just kind of like that, and he's like in the brightest yellow jumpsuit you could ever see. But I love when he turns around with the ski and it turns into a gun.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much of that. But like you said, the bright yellow jumpsuit, and then a lot of the time when we see him skiing, it's so obviously in front of a green screen. But the scene itself is really good of actually where they put the camera on the skis when they're actually, whoever the stuntmen are doing it. It's great. But speaking of the opening, I actually love the opening of this and how they kind of set up a big plot point in the movie. Like, they kind of just hint at it with, like, oh, he's got to head to Austria. And then James Bond's like, where are you going? He's like, I got to go do something in Austria. And I'm like, okay, I kind of see where they're going. They don't really like feed it to you in like, with over exposition. They actually kind of let that unfold organically. And I liked how they set that up in the opening and just playing into the fact that, yeah, this is Roger Moore, biggest playboy James Bond type of guy in this one.
Yeah, and it's almost like they're going back to their original kind of form, because when they went from Connery to Lazenby back to Connery, then Moore, remember we talked about Live and Let Die, Moore in Live and Let Die, he was kind of going against the grain. He was smoking cigars. he was drinking, and I think he was drinking a different tonic as well. He didn't have the Walter PPK, and then you had the me, what I would call, no pun intended, a misfire with Man with the Golden Gun. This movie is a big step up from that. 100%. This movie is far superior to the one that came before, and it's also almost like they went back to their roots. Like you were saying about this feels like Doctor No. Do you? To me, like this film is on the Mount Rushmore of James Bond movies. You know, Goldfinger, The Spy Who Loved Me. If you want to say go, now I know there's a lot of big fans out there, and maybe Casino Royale, Skyfall, you know, or License to Kill. Sorry, not License to Kill. Well, I don't know. License to Kill or
That's the
Living
ultimate one.
Daylights. Do you think that's his best one out of the two he done?
They're really close. They're very different, but I would say when I think of Dalton, I definitely think of License to Kill. That's always the one that pops in my
Yeah.
mind. You know, I think of,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's the better. I guess they're close. I like them both, but I would say License to Kill. But you're right. Roger Moore, when you think of Roger Moore, if you're going to pick one Bond movie for him, I would say The Spy Who Loved Me is probably the one that stands out the most to people. And it's got iconic scenes for that reason, too.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this movie. So again, it's his third movie. It's when he feels more comfortable in the character. It's when he comes into his own. But what the producers have also done is, the filmmakers have also done, is they just brought him back to his roots again. They said, no, he's drinking martinis, shaking, that's third. You know, he's got the Walter PPK. Although I think he had that in Man with the Golden Gun. But as I say, even mentioned about his dead wife, you know, this is the same Bond.
Yeah, I actually wanted to. That was a question I wrote down that I wanted to ask you because I don't remember if they've ever actually brought up the other Bond films. Like, you know, we have characters overlap, but to bring up the fact that he was married and this was a different James Bond, that we were going through his history. Have they ever done that before, or was this the first time where they tried to acknowledge that these are connected movies and this is all the same Bond?
Well, the only thing is that with on Her Majesty's Secret Service,
Sorry.
you did have, no, your grand mate. You have what do you call it? At the start of Her Majesty's Secret Service, you have like a montage of the previous Bond movies, if you remember. So it is pretty much telling, look, this is the same character. This is not a. It's not like a.
I was gonna say like a serial where it's like a different episode of Bond, kind of.
Yeah, but it's a different episode, but it's the same character, it's the same guy. You know, it doesn't matter that George Lazenby is playing him or Roger Moore's playing him or Sean Connery. It's the same character that did marry Tracy. It's this, you know, and she was murdered. So there's that kind of. I think that's what they're trying to say. There's that kind of continuity. But you also remember as well in the Lazenby movie as well, when he was clearing out his desk, he went through artifacts from the previous movies. So
yes, I remember you pointing that out.
Yeah, and there is a Bond movie. Which one is it now? It's an Octopussy at the start where Bond actually visits Tracy's grave. So Moore does kind of touch on that a couple of times, but I'm trying to remember any other Bond movies in this series because I know that when they got to Craig, it was almost like wiping the slate clean and trying to say we're starting from the start. So I can't remember the minute, John, because there's so many of them. That there's ones that later on, the likes of Dalton, that mention about his wife or anything that happened previously. But the funny thing is, as well, as what I'm saying, so this is, to me, it's just like they went back to the roots, and they're saying that's just make this an all-out James Bond adventure. And I think part of the reason that as well was when I was doing my research was Harry Saltzman is no longer a producer of the Bond movies. He sold his rights off to MGM, and it was only Cubby Broccoli, and they were going to bring back Guy Hamilton, who had directed a few of the previous Bond movies, and he dropped out because there was a delay to do with rights issues. Thunderball was a novel which was written by Ian Fleming, and that's where he first touched upon Spectre and Blofeld, and it was originally going to be a screenplay for a movie, and he turned it into a book. But he was writing. I think he was writing a screenplay with another guy. What's his name again? Oh, I can't even think of his name. He was writing it with another guy, McClory, and when he wrote the novel, he pretty much sued Fleming because he said that he helped create Spectre and Blofeld and all this. So what happened was that he won the rights to Spectre and Blofeld. So Cubby Broccoli and stuff couldn't use it without use Spectre and Blofeld in any other movies unless they were going to pay this guy McClory. So they opted out and decided of using Blofeld, and they decided to create a new villain, which is the villain you see in this movie. But in between that, Guy Hamilton dropped out of the project, and they brought in Lewis Gilbert to direct the movie. So there was a bit of a delay. I didn't realize, because there's a bit of a gap, 1974 to 77, which is 3 years, which was a long time for a Bond movie back then. But I think it was supposed to be originally scheduled for 76. So these are the changes that kind of happened in producing The Spy Who Loved Me, and I think that's why they decided to go just balls to the wall. Let's just make this an epic James Bond adventure. Let's go back to the roots. And even like the climax at the end, you kind of have two climaxes. You have one in the tanker, and that just reminds me of the end of You Only Live Twice. And then you have the end in that. I don't even know. What's the name of the bad guy? Strasberg.
Strasberg or
Stromberg. Well, then you have Stromberg. Yeah, you have the ending with inside his lair as well, which reminds me of the end of Doctor No. So I feel as if it's just all these different elements of Bond that we have kind of come to expect over the previous 15 years to create The Spy Who Loved Me, although I actually think it's definitely one of the best Bond movies.
Yeah, well, actually, funny, just to touch on a little bit that you brought up, Guy Hamilton, actually, another reason why he bowed out was he thought that he was going to get the Superman job, and they moved on to Richard Donner, so he didn't come in for that. That was one thing, so he felt a little overconfident himself. And Lewis Gilbert, who did direct this, I think he directed another one or two James Bond movies, so I guess he had some familiarity with the franchise.
I think he done a few. I can't think of the other ones, but he definitely done You Only Live Twice.
That's the one I was thinking of. He definitely did You Only Live Twice. And
Yes.
also Steven Spielberg, in that little in-between space between 74 and 77, he actually asked to direct a James Bond movie, and I guess they said no, which is weird because little obviously when we're going to be talking about this movie, one of the greatest henchmen in movie history is in it, and his name happens to be Jaws. I don't know if there's any reason for that, or if it's just a coincidence. I was hoping you could shed some light. I didn't even look it up just to see if you knew something on that.
Well, the thing about Spielberg was I've heard different things over the years. Spielberg always wanted to direct a Bond movie. You know, he loved James Bond, and that's why he has. Well, people assume that's why he has that 007 number plate in Jaws, the movie Jaws, and then later on, sure, he ended up directing Indiana Jones because he said that he wanted to direct a Bond movie, and Lucas said he had something better. But I heard that the reason why Cubby Broccoli wouldn't give him the job was he said he was too expensive.
Yeah, they've always been cheap. That's one thing I've never understood with the James Bond franchise. We've talked about this in our previous ones, how low the budgets are compared to how big these profits end up being. It's like they're always so cheap.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that had anything. I don't know if that's true. If that's the case, why they wouldn't give Spielberg the job. But in regards to Jaws, the Henchman, I've read a few of the Fleming books. It is kind of one of my goals to kind of read all the books eventually. I couldn't sit down and read them one after the other. I read about 3 or 4 of them, and every year I'm going to just try and read another one, or every couple of years. But I know that there's a henchman in one of the books. I don't know which one it is. It's not one of the ones I've read, where a villain which has metallic teeth, but he's not called Jaws in these books. And the reason, obviously, that Richard Kiel is called Jaws in this movie is clearly named after the movie Jaws, which came out in 1975. This goes back to what I was saying, John, before in one of our previous pods about once the Bond films hit the 70s, they kind of reflect the movies that were doing well in that time. And Jaws was the biggest movie of all time when this was released. So you have this whole water theme with this movie. You have the shark tank, which was killing, which the Stromberg was able to put people into. Then you had a henchman who's 7 foot tall and with metallic teeth. He's a killer. He's a hitman, and he's called Jaws.
Yeah, I wrote down the first time I saw the Jaws, the Shark Tank in this movie, the first time he uses it, I wrote, oh, so they really are leaning into Jaws with this movie. I literally wrote that down because, I mean, they show a pretty good amount of that shark biting him. I was like, that was impressive, but I love that, actually, because, of course, The Spy Who Loved Me, I'm always going to think of Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. And I think of the whole, all the shark bits and everything and all the layers. And, I'm always going to circle back to that in my head just naturally.
Yeah, sorry, the dog was falling off a sofa and she didn't know what to do. Two of her legs were hanging off the back of the sofa, and she was just hanging like this. I had to pull her up there, but I wasn't listening to what you were saying. But yeah, when I should have seen her, two legs were hanging. She was just like hanging on. Yeah, but yes, when I was watching this again, because I haven't seen this one for a few years now, maybe 4 years. I haven't seen this one. I remember in one of our other pods, I can't remember which one it was, that you'd said about how Austin Powers was leaning heavily into one of the previous Bond movies. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Diamonds Are Forever. But
yeah, you could just pinpoint moments that they take.
Yeah, well, you can dab. When I was watching this, I thought to myself, I must say to John about this one here again, 100%. Austin Powers heavily leaning into this with the villain and the lair and the shark tank, and even some of the villain, you know, obviously with Jaws. But the other villain with the wee stocky bald guy, he reminded me of like Blowjob.
Oh my god! Blowjob.
Sorry. I was thinking of Blofeld and Oddjob. He remains that's a famous joke. That's a famous joke. I'm gonna go as a cross between Oddjob and Blofeld. You can cut that bit out. He reminded me of Oddjob.
Yeah, you know what? He does kind of remind me of Oddjob too, especially since he doesn't speak really. So yeah, he's got that kind of similar demeanor.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like in this movie. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go for we're gonna have these two villains. You know, this big giant one who's almost kind of unstoppable. You know what I mean? And then we'll have this other one who's like Oddjob. You know, they're teaming up. It's a double act thing rather than just having one henchman. But obviously, Roger Moore takes out the wee stocky kind of henchman quite easily.
And Jaws, they just knew what they had because they didn't want to kill him off at the end, and they let him actually have his moment and escape, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, and I'm near certain that the original idea was the shark was going to kill him. The shark was going to eat him at the end.
That would make sense. They don't usually leave any like loose threads with people carrying over.
Yeah, I suppose they kind of thought to themselves, you know, he seemed to be such a menacing villain that this could be someone they could bring back again. Because I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. I'm just throwing this out here. If they couldn't use Blofeld as a returning villain, oh, here's a villain that could be popular, we could bring him back, and they do bring him back. But I do think that Jaws in this movie, as a henchman, as a hitman, at the start is genuinely menacing. He's very ominous, and he is kind of scary. But I do love that when he does have accidents or brushes with Bond, and Bond gets a bat out of him, he just stands up and just kind of brushes himself off.
He's like, it's not going to be that easy. I'm not one of those. Like, he really is. He's strong. Of course, there's times like where I feel like they should have cut a little sooner, where they're moving in with his teeth, and it's like going really slow. I'm like, I would have sped that up, but I'm like, it's of the time. There's little things like that. But yeah, I love that he just keeps getting back up. That's a great rivalry between the two of them because, he's much bigger and thicker than Bond. Although Moore's look at the end, I mean, he used this look before, but I love the all black Roger Moore James Bond look.
Yeah, that's right. When was that? Towards the end, wasn't it? When he goes into the lair? Yeah, because he was in his military uniform, wasn't he? Was it his
for a while there? Yeah, he was in his military
Navy uniform. Yeah, and he was on. I love that when he's on the jet ski.
Yeah,
Oh, I've only got so much time to savor. Give me an hour. Your man says to you, Bond, I just came from the top, and he's like 40 minutes, and he's like, all right, I'll give you an hour.
Well, he was banging out the one-liners in this movie like crazy. Even at the end, his final line is a one-liner. I was just keeping up Britain's End.
I keep it on the British. Yes, you know what? That's one thing that I actually did write down in my notes about Bond's one-liners, right? I just loved his one-liners. Like when he took out the henchman, who's very much like Oddjob or Blowjob, whatever you want to call him. What he says to him, where's Peckish? And he's holding on to his tie. And when he knocks his tie, and then he says to him, what a lovely chap. But some of the other one-liners, what do you call the Bond girl, Triple X? After Jaws has killed his first victim looking for the microfilm, and Bond goes in and finds the dead body. I love that when Jaws comes out and he pulls the gun on him.
Yeah,
and then the lights go down and he kind of ducks. And then when the lights come back on again, Jaws is gone. But he goes in and he sees the body and he comes out and he takes on a few of Triple X's goons and knocks them out. And he just says, "I hope you enjoyed the show. Good night." But he's a few other ones like the guy, Mister Calvers. Do you remember? He goes in. He's got the maker film next. Did you notice the size of his tie, his bow tie? It was about the same size as his head.
It's ridiculous. I assumed that was of the time, but I don't know what time.
It's fucking massive. It was like one of those joke ties. But he says about when he kills it, he puts the sign on him, out of order, and then because he went to take the phone call. Remember, he went to take the phone call, and Triple X says, "What happened to him? Is he dead?" And he says, "He was cut off." But even the other ones, when she's in the car and Jaws is destroying the van, he's like, "Can you play any other tunes?" And the Lotus Esprit, when he gets the Lotus Esprit, and Q says, have I ever let you? He said, Bond says to him, even have I ever let you down? And he says, frequently. So yeah, I mean, I've got loads written down here just of all these one-liners. I think Moore in this film, like I said earlier on in the pod there, John, that he's never been better, but that doesn't mean he's bad in the next 4 or 3 or 4 Bond movies he does. I mean, I think he's absolutely brilliant in Moonraker for what it is. I think he's brilliant in For Your Eyes Only, which is one of my favorite Bond response. And of course, yeah, Octopussy and View to Kill. A lot of people think he just phoned it in, but that's what I'm saying. See his one-liners on this movie. He's just so on point. He just gets the vibe of Bond down to a T. His version of Bond is so perfect throughout this whole film.
Oh yeah, no, he nailed the tone perfectly for what his Bond is going to be, which I feel like he took a little bit from Connery, which I do feel like this movie in general and took a lot from the early Connery films, especially like having the one main villain, very similar to Dr. No, and the Lair and the underwater stuff. That's what kind of reminded me a lot of Dr. No. But Roger Moore, he found his style perfectly in this, and the one-liners, they just would kill me. And literally his first line of dialogue, "So does England," and the last line are all one-liners. So they just knew what they had with him with this movie, and it works so great. The only issue I always had, I'm not a big fan. I feel like the villain, his plot, what he's trying to go for, and how he looks, I'm not in love with it. I don't love his entire thing, mainly because I don't know how old he is, but he looks like he's 84 years old. And I just can't imagine this guy wanting to save the world, like, create his own underwater world while destroying the rest of the world. Like, how long are you going to enjoy it? Like, I feel like you got 6 months left.
Yeah, you know what? That's one of the I'm not going to say flaws, but weaker points of this movie for me is I agree with you. I feel as if they created this villain who was very Dr. No-esque. They were tapping into that. Did you notice he had webbed hands?
Yes.
Yeah. You had said earlier about you think the plot was great in this movie. I just think I don't find the plot overly exhilarating, if you know what I mean. I hate it when it gets too convoluted. I mean, it's not convoluted, but to me, the plot was flimsy. Like you say, it was a wee bit silly that this guy thought that he was going to create an underwater world and wipe everybody out. But that aside, I like how the movie just goes straight into it from the start. I like how, it gets straight into it. I mean, I don't feel as if this movie, it doesn't feel slow either. And I also really enjoy the subplot of Triple X's boyfriend being killed, or lover, or whatever you want to call him, being killed by Bond at the start, and her finding out later on in the movie and saying to Bond, when this is over, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, I wanted more of the subplot, actually. That's the thing, is I think the subplot is great. And they set that up in the opening scene. And I love how that plays out, especially all the way through to the end, which I mean, I knew that was coming, but still, like, it's kind of obvious if you know a James Bond movie that she, of course, would forgive him. But I did love that she said to him, like, you killed my lover. When this is over, I'm going to kill you. And, you kind of have that looming over everything. But I also did like the element that we have, the KGB working with British intelligence as well. I kind of like that element. I always kind of like just to see rivals kind of like team up for something. And I like seeing the two bosses kind of, especially at the end when they see the two of them hook up together and they're just like, oh, come on. Like they just it's like a laughable moment to send the crowd home happy. And, I like those elements. It's just, I don't love the main bad guy and that plot in general, but everything around it is still good. I enjoy it. So it's not enough to take you out of the movie at all.
Yeah, exactly. There's enough going on. There's enough really good parts of this movie that you can forgive it a bit for that kind of weaker plot because you're entertained. The thing about this movie as well, just talking about it now, John, thinking about it, it gives us enough of the old and introduces new. I feel, even though by the standards, by the dead standards, it's dated, it's very late 1970s. But you think about giving us all the old stuff with Bond, the Connery stuff of the shaken not stirred and all this, and the elements that you need to make a Bond movie. But it also gives us, for the first time in my opinion, a Bond girl that is every bit his equal.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives us another, to me, the second most famous car in the Bond franchise, which is the Lotus Esprit.
Yeah, I was waiting to get to this. This is something like I feel like people who don't even know the James Bond franchise have seen that in the water before. They know those images. Like that's just one of
Yeah,
those images that stand out. And I couldn't wait to see that thing go underwater, which is amazing and all done practically. They had, I believe, 4 versions of that for every part of that car so that they could show it. And I mean, it's just that's something special about that. And I can only imagine seeing that in 1977 when you got movies like Star Wars, but this is still a feat in itself, in my opinion.
yeah. Do you know what? The one word that I think that is always is overused a lot when people are describing movies and pop culture and things like that is the word iconic. But no, this car literally is iconic. The only thing that I don't understand, which I think is a bit laughable, is that when he crashes it into the water, she looks shocked and stunned and scared. Um, and then later on, she's pressing buttons, and he's looking at her like, "Oh, as if, how did you know to do that?" And she says, "Oh, well, I seen the blueprints of this plan about 4 years ago." Well, if you had seen the blueprints of the car 4 or 5 years ago, why were you terrified when it went into the water? Surely you should have knew it was going to turn into a submarine.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that plot hole, but that's very
Yeah,
true.
like
Like she does, because I'm looking at Bond, but you're right. She's there like screaming, looking shocked and scared. So yeah, if you knew he was going in the water, I mean, and also you should have knew he was doing something. Like, what's he gonna do? Just be there smiling and kind of cracking jokes as he's about to kill himself? That doesn't make sense.
yeah. And on this rewatch, I noticed that the last time I watched it, but watching it again, I was waiting for it coming up. But at one bit I noticed that he said when he was on the road, he says we're going to get a closer look at Stromberg's laboratory, whatever you call it. So what did you think that we're going to do? Where were they driving to? Did you not put two and two together and go, "Oh, you're going to bring the car"? Because I seen the blueprints of this car and I know it turns into a submarine.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
You know
we're
you're
going
going to an underwater lair.
yeah, exactly. But that, to be honest, that scene, that's one of the best action parts of this movie is when they're on that road and they're trying to kill them. I think that's one of the best action scenes of the movie. And then the Bond, or the what I call her, she's a Bond girl, but she's not really a Bond girl. She was the girl that was with the villains, and she comes up on the helicopter. And I love how she looks over and winks at Bond, and then Bond just kind of like smiles.
Yeah. I love that. Actually, you're right. That is a great action sequence. And I actually was surprised when they actually shot the missile out and killed her. Like I was like, yeah, she seemed like she was going to be a little bit bigger part of the movie with her in the helicopter there. But yeah, she died pretty damn fast. Can't stop a missile.
Yeah, Bond took no prisoners in this movie, and just
No.
thinking of Bond girls and things like that. One thing I wanted to bring up was, did you not think that Triple X's boyfriend at the start of the movie, who everybody thought that when you first watched this movie, probably the first time you thought he was going to be Triple X, though when the Russians said, let's get our best agents on the job, and he's in bed with this lovely looking woman, did you not think that he looked a lot like George Lazenby?
Oh my god. I swear to God, I thought that exact same thing. No joke at all. I'm like, wow, this guy does look like George Lazenby. I mean, I
Yeah.
obviously know it's not, but I do also love the play into it, like, with the Triple X thing and having it be a female. Must have been even more shocking in 1977 having it be her and seeing this for the first time. It's coming now, and especially since he's also working that's his job as well. So, obviously that's why he's going to Austria. And then we know what happens. It's pretty easy to figure out when you put two and two together. But still, I love it. I think that's some of the best writing in the movie, and I think that's where the issues kind of come in. And you were talking about it earlier. If they had so many rewrites and everything, maybe just too many hands in the kitchen or something like that.
Yeah, too many cooks.
Yeah, too many cooks, not too many. I guess you got two hands. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, still too many hands if too many cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I do really enjoy that scene though, where she confronts Bond about when she puts two and two together. And I like how he doesn't shy away from it.
No,
You know,
he's honest. He's like really upfront about it. He's like, you do the job too. Like, I didn't look at the guy. He's trying to kill me, and I killed him.
yeah. And the next scene where they're being lowered down into the submarine, he's like smiling at her. Do you remember? He's like smiling at her, and she's like giving him the eyes. But I love when they go on the submarine and that scene afterwards, and the captain, the American captain of the submarine, says about you I didn't know you were going to be. It was going to be a woman, and she says you treat me like any of your men or any other a commander or something. She says, and he says, "Well, you can use my showering quarters. I'd advise it." But then when the sailor comes in and sees her in the shower, it's like he's never seen a woman before.
I know, he's so surprised by it. Well, I guess that was just because, like, it's supposed to be this, like, big shocking nude scene in a movie. Like, you act like you've never seen a man showering before or something like that. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah, like the most shocking thing in the world to him.
yeah, yeah. And even he says, "What's wrong? Have you never seen a woman showering before?" He obviously hasn't.
Nah, maybe he hasn't. I don't
You know,
know.
he's been stuck in that submarine with all them seamen for too long.
I could do it, so it'll probably screw you up.
But speaking of them naval men on that submarine, I love the bit when at the end when they're actually when they're in the tanker and they're fighting against Stromberg's bad guys, and there's a door they've got to get through, and they're like, we're never going to get through that, and this guy says, "Leave it to me. You come with me." And he goes up the steps, and as soon as he gets up the steps, they just shoot them all down, and that's it. He didn't get too far.
No, the overcome, and this movie does have a lot of laughs like that. Where if you watch all those like side characters, which are basically extras, what they're doing, just like yes sir, and just moving along and twisting keys and everything like that. But brings up another good point is I love the set design in this movie, and that was kind of another thing that reminded me of Doctor No. It's just something we lost today. I love great set design. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It looks good. I mean, I love that layer and all as well. That the Stromberg has too. It's one of these are one of these movies that I don't remember the first time I seen it. I don't remember kind of sitting down and watching it as a kid or anything like that. But there's bits and pieces that I remember from this movie, and it is kind of like the underwater layer and the sharks and things like that. And it's really good. And I'm sitting watching it the other night and looking to see, for example, obviously a tank behind that with fish or anything like that. It must be projected, and I can't see any flaws with it. It looks fine. It looks as if there is actually water behind it and real fish.
I was gonna say, I mean, like,
Sorry.
yeah, I agree. There's some green screen, but it's only really noticeably bad. I feel like kind of in the beginning with the ski scene, but other than that, yeah, I agree with you. The water stuff, I didn't have any issues with that.
Yeah, and like when Bond goes down to actually meet Stromberg, where he pretends to be the marine biologist,
Oh, that's great.
and she says, he don't shake hands. He doesn't like shaking hands because of his webbed hands. The first thing he does is nice to meet you and puts his hand out just to see what he would do as me Bond, what he had. But then the next thing is, but before that, he notices the arm in the tank.
Yeah,
Remember?
I mean, that's obviously another big Doctor No thing, but and Doctor No is a little more understandable. But in this one, how does nobody realize who James Bond is? Like at this point, he's always using that name. He doesn't really try to change it, rarely ever. And you don't know, like you're planning on creating this entire underworld city, and you don't know who MI6's best agent is at this point.
Yeah, and he tries to catch him out by saying, "Oh, marine biologist, do you like that fish there?" And he's like, but first Moore makes a face as if he doesn't know, like a big. And then he rhymes off what type of fish it is, and he goes, "Oh, you know your stuff," and he's like one tries, but another one of his one liners, one tries, but as soon as he leaves, he brings Jaws in. And he says, "Are they the two people you seen at the?" I think he says at the pyramids, and he's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Well, let them leave, then kill them," and then that goes into the big chase on the road.
Yeah.
But the only thing I will say about the special effects in this movie, John, is that I do feel while watching this intently the other night for the pod, I think a lot of the miniature work didn't hold up.
No, you notice that with the helicopter explosion. It's not the best edited movie in general, too. They don't do a good job of cutting between, cutting between miniatures or cutting between green screen and realistic moments. It's very jarring.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right. That maybe just lingered a bit too long on some of those miniatures. There's time, especially when you're doing miniatures on water as well. It's a lot more noticeable, I think, because of the scale.
Yeah. It's still worlds better than like 1960s James Bond movies as far as the
Yes.
effects go, but it's still of the time. And this is kind of like they're not using industrial light and magic, even though this came out the same year as Star Wars. That was kind of like where miniature work really like became like at the forefront of what they're able to do. This is still just I don't know who did the special effects for this, but I'm sure this was the standard of the time.
Do you know what? I think the guy that done the special effects for us, what is his name? Oh, I can't even think. It'll come to me at some stage. But he was a guy. I have actually a book on him, and
Oh,
it's
really?
yeah, it's in the attic. I bought it and never read it because funny enough, he done the miniature work for Batman as well. He's British based. He's British, and
Oh.
I got his name, Derek Madlings. And I'm near certain he done it for this. He done a lot of the Bond movies. I don't know if he done all the Bond movies going back to the 60s, but he done a lot of the Bond movies, the 80s ones, I think the 70s ones. Like he may have even done this. And he also done a lot of the model work for, or his team for Batman and Superman, because a lot of their movies were filmed in England.
Yeah, but hey, both at Pinewood too, so come into that
Yeah.
office and something like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess he improved a lot by the time we get to Batman, which is 1989, so that's fair to say that he would improve. But I really think good editing can fix a lot of that too.
Yeah, but like I say, like yes, I agree with you. Editing as well. Some that doesn't help matters when you're lingering on things, and I think when you're doing stuff on water, not so much underwater. Underwater, a lot of the miniatures looked fine to me. It was above water, which you've got like tankers and submarines on top of water. It's the scale because you can't change the scale of the waves.
No, you
you,
cannot change the scale of the waves.
you can't, okay, unless you do it like half scale or something. I don't know. But yeah, but there of course there's a case to be made that 10 years down the line there's other advancements that can be made in relation to model work. But nowadays, like, I'm near certain, you might know better than me because you're more into the more modern movies than I am, but model work is pretty much dead now, isn't it?
Yeah, and believe me, what they'll do now is they'll shoot all the miniatures in front of green screens. Then they'll go shoot they'll go shoot the water or anything, and then they'll combine them with CGI, and all that stuff will basically blend the reality. They have a lot more tools now than they did back then. They had to do the best they could. It's really what it is. It's when they shot the opening credits for for Star Wars, they just shot it with an actual camera as it's scrolling by, whereas all that's done on a computer now. Just
Yeah.
things get better. It's you got to forgive those kind of things, and I always try to, and I still appreciate it because I like knowing how they did that at the time.
Yeah, look, I'm not. For 1 minute, I am not kind of like being negative about this film. I think this film is like it's a near perfect Bond film to me. It's an essential Bond film. It's like I said earlier, it's one of the Mount Rushmore Bond films for me. It is of its time. It's not terrible. It's just I was
Oh,
watching it and I just kind of went, well, you can kind of tell there are miniatures there. But speaking of which, speaking of Mount Rushmore of Bond movies and kind of essential Bond movies, I didn't even touch on this. What did you think of the theme song?
How you found me. I tried to hide from your
love the theme song actually, and I love the opening credits. I actually thought that those were some of the best. Love the underwater stuff. I mean, it's very similar to things that they've actually done in like Skyfall or GoldenEye, and I love that. That's one thing with the James Bond movies in general that I love, that they always have to hit those certain things. The theme song, the opening, the gun barrel opening. It kind of gets you in the mood, like while you were saying earlier how springtime kind of feels like James Bond. There's certain things you kind of want to see, even though there's always certain movies that specifically will go out of their way to like turn that trope upside down, but still they're acknowledging it. And yeah, I love all that stuff. And the opening theme to this worked very well for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of the essential James Bond songs, and this song to be it's synonymous with Roger Moore's James Bond.
Yes, 110%.
Hmm.
It works so well. And I mean, also love I just think of the parachute, the British parachute at the beginning. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I use the word again. That's an iconic shot, an iconic opening. And by all accounts, that was a real stunt. That was actually done by a stuntman.
Oh my god, people are stuntman. That's why we don't acknowledge them enough. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't know what they pay them, but they should be paid more than the acting because you could die.
I know exactly. So, but you see that guy flying off there. It's no CGI. It's no messing about. That's all real. But another one I wanted to mention as well was that, just briefly who's in this is M and Q. But I just this line he says at the start to Bond about where's Bond? He's in Austria and he says tell him to pull out immediately.
I cut to what he's doing.
Oh God, it's fine. But then at the end, it was brilliant. I mean, you wouldn't get that in a Bond movie now. And then later on, Q, as I say, just want to touch on some of these characters which we've seen in previous Bond movies. They're not prominent in this movie, but they're in it. Was Q as well. Now Bond goes into the naval or the naval is it ship at the start or a submarine at the start. And it looks like they're in the north of Scotland. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it looked like. But they go in and they're showing them, these nuclear submarines have disappeared. I don't know why that big computer screen was like behind these big kind of like metallic doors, and why I had to put numbers in to get it. I don't know why. But when they said about they can't track, what does he say? Says how can they track them? It's impossible. How can they track the nuclear submarines? It's impossible. And Q just comes out of nowhere. He's like, no. I'm like, fuck do you come from? It's quite simple, really.
I know. It's always quite simple. You just went from impossible to quite simple. I love how he explains it. I guess that makes sense. It is heat signature tracking, but again, I guess in 1977 they don't know what that is. I love Q. He is so good as Q, and he plays that role for so long, and even him. One thing I just noticed throughout this whole movie is just how much everybody is aging from when you watch them in like this short distance, because it's still only been about a year from when Connery to now, how much they've gotten so much older around James Bond.
Yeah. Well, look, that scene there, thinking about that scene, I actually burst out laughing, and and it's kind of done like that on purpose. It's not like it's not like he wasn't supposed to do that, because you see the three of them turn and stand and watch him while he's explaining. He comes out of nowhere. He just comes out of frame, in the frame. No, it's quite simple, really. And that's what I like about this. It doesn't take itself too serious, but it's not. It can be silly in parts, but it's not silly to the point of Damon's Are Forever silly, where it's eye rolling. But like you're saying, yes, I do think that the likes of Moore and stuff has aged. You can notice how much he's aged between the first one he done, which was like 1972 or 73 or something, to 1977. But I do think he still looks younger than the next ones that come along after that.
Oh, by the end of his run, like we were talking in A View to a Kill, he looks like a pure-blooded senior citizen. And the things that he is doing, he should not be doing when we get to A View to a Kill that we're going to have to talk about.
Yeah, you know what? That's the thing. When we originally started doing these James Bond ones, it was kind of like, we touched on certain things, and I was like, I'll save it for that episode. I'll save it. And I still want to save it for those episodes, whenever we do them, because I have a lot to say about that.
Summer 2027.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. All I'll say about A View to a Kill is that I have a soft spot for it. It's not, I don't hate it. That's all I'll say about that.
It might actually still be my favorite theme song to any of these movies, because I love Duran Duran, and I love A View to a Kill, so it'll always have a soft spot in that sense.
With a view to a kill.
Yeah, well, it's my favorite Bond song, to be honest with you, of all time.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, for years you kind of go to yourself like, oh, you can't say A View to a Kill, or you can't say Aha, because it's not the cool thing, or it's not the done thing, or Goldfinger is more recognizably the better song by the more people. But over time, John, I've came to realize that that's my favorite one, because that's the one that I would listen to more than the others.
Oh, Living Daylights is amazing. I love Living Daylights too. That's a great one. I guess yeah. If you're comparing Aha to Paul McCartney and Live and Let Die, yeah, I get what they're saying, but doesn't mean I don't like the '80s stuff a little bit more.
Yeah, do you know what? I actually think that the Living Daylights by Aha is a very underrated, and it goes under the radar when people talk about Bond songs.
Also has a great score. I really can't wait to finally like. I love the two Dalton movies. I really do. They're some of my
Yeah.
personal favorites. So I'm looking forward. I just always like Timothy Dalton. Very underrated actor. He's just got a distinct look to him.
Yeah, and you know when I said earlier about the Mount Rushmore of Bond movies, I'm not saying like that's the top five because we've discussed it before. Like I mean, I could nearly pick two or three Connery movies that could be in my top five, right? But that's because I prefer the Connery movies, right? Whereas you may
Yeah.
pick, you may even pick two Dalton movies in your top five. But what I'm saying is that earlier on for years I did think License to Kill, but when I got the box set and I watched the Living Daylights, I thought, oh, you know what, this might be just a wee bit better. Now I've only watched it a couple of times since I got the box set, but it is one of those ones I may need to watch both of them, you know, back to back, you know, over 2 nights or over a week, and then make a decision which one to me is the essential Timothy Dalton.
It's tough. I always felt like The Living Daylights is the more conventional Bond movie, which most people might like, whereas License to Kill feels like a darker, grittier James Bond movie. Like he gets, he's basically out on his own in America, and I like that aspect of it. So I kind of give the edge to The Living Daylights. I mean, to License to Kill, but Living Daylights is for me. You're right. Both Dalton movies are actually in my top 5. It's actually crazy when you think about it, because I do truly love those movies. Even like compared to like Daniel Craig, only really Skyfall and Casino Royale I would say are like competing. Skyfall is one of my favorites, and then when it comes to Pierce Brosnan, it's only GoldenEye. The rest of them I
Yeah.
don't really love at all.
Yeah, no, I understand, and that's what I'm saying about the me License to Kill is more in vein of a late 80s action thriller. I think it has all those kind of late 80s tropes about drugs and things like that. The fact that Bond's kind of went rogue as well. You know, when M1's is like, you know, you're off the case.
Yeah, I love that scene when he basically tells him that, and he's like in a beach house in Miami. I'm like, where are they?
Yeah, Miami Vice or something, you know, and it's his best friend at the start that near gets killed, and they kill his wife, and he's like, I think it's M says, Bond, you know, leave this, and he's like, well, I'm not, and he's like, well, give me your gun and badge. It's an 80s fucking cop movie. That's basically what it is. But look, I still love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it for that's what I mean. Like Living Daylights is more of a Bond movie, whereas like you just said, License to Kill, it's an 80s movie. I mean, it's
and even the way he's dressed like Miami Vice Story, or well, he's running about in the late 80s. He's running about in a pair of jeans, a shirt, and a bomber jacket or a leather jacket. You know, he's not even really dressed like Bond throughout it. Now, it's been a while since I've seen it. I'm sure there's scenes in it where he's in a tux and things like that, But for the most part, when I think of License to Kill and Timothy Dalton, I think of him running about. I think it's blue jeans, a white shirt, and like an 80s jacket.
Yeah, you get a young Benicio del Toro in there too, playing a henchman. And like, I mean, it's literally got drugs in it. It's so 80s, but I love it for that.
Yeah, exactly. And Robert Davi is a great Bond villain as well, who was very prominent in the 80s as well, when you think about it. You know?
He's good at it. Yeah, he's good at his job. He's good at what he does. You know, if I can remember right, too, that movie also has an alligator pit in it where he's killing people in that. So I guess shark, alligator. You know, we're just expanding the horizons.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Why have a shark when you can have both?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's right. To start with a shark, he puts your man's legs in. But no, I enjoy it. It's a good action movie. Speaking of which, I just glanced at my notes here, and I'm just kind of thinking about this too. Just some of the silly parts of this is like, for example, when he's going through the desert and they're playing the Lawrence of Arabia theme. That was kind of the bits of this where I'm going, you know, I'm not too fussed on that. And then when he goes to the MI6's base, and it's these are the silly parts of these movies that they kind of seem to throw these tropes in, thinking this is what people want to see. And in hindsight, I go, there was really no need. And they have like an MI6 kind of headquarters in like an Egyptian tomb.
I know.
Like it was in a boat. It was in a capsized boat in The Man with the Golden Gun.
I mean, they put the outfit on him too, like and everything. It's just like, yeah, they really lean into like that's where it is silly, but it also, I guess, is of the. But they kind of still do that in Skyfall too, where they have the under in the waterways of London there.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I guess they kind of reuse it, but you're right. In this sense, it's like, oh no, we just happen to have one here in the tomb.
Yeah, yeah, and, but I do like how she kind of, well, I'm gonna say outsmarts him and takes the microfilm. I do like how Triple X kind of like leads him on and then takes the cigarette out and blows it in his face, and he's like, right? And knocks him out. Yeah, but at least when he wakes up this time, John, remember when he woke up in The Man with the Golden Gun? He was in a karate outfit. He was getting fed tea, and he didn't ask once, like, how did I get here? How long have I been out? He wakes up the next morning, but he's still in his tux, and he has to try and work out where he is and make his way to these headquarters. But I do like that how he makes his way there, and he's still in the tux when he gets there. But she's like, oh, we've got to work together. I'll give you the microfilm. But he's already one step ahead of her. Like, even though she was leading him on, he was already examined the microfilm and said, oh, it's worthless. And they said, like, he says another one-liner here. As a matter of fact, I dropped off because that one as well. When he gets the headquarters.
As a matter of fact, I dropped off. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of innuendos in this movie and everything, which are great. And we're getting into the 70s, so we can start doing all this kind of stuff. It's funny how you see them more directly addressing like some of the sexual stuff, whereas they used to just kind of work around it.
Yeah, exactly. But then when they get to the train, we're doing this again on the train, which this I'm not complaining about this, but because I do really like this scene on the train with Jaws, where he's on the train and then he Jaws kind of I think he knocks Triple X out, and then Bond fights Jaws. But it's all very reminiscent of the Red Grant fight on the train. And then I just remembered that they actually had a train fight in Live and Let Die as well with the villain who had the missing hand.
Yeah, well, I feel like train sequences it's just a common action movie trope. And I feel like it actually got really started with Robert Shaw in that one movie. In which one was that?
From Russia with Love.
From Russia with Love. Like, I feel like that trope of like fighting on trains, like Mission Impossible just did this last year with Dead Reckoning Part 1. Very similar kind of thing, fighting in the train cars and everything like that. I just feel like it's an action movie trope, the train sequence in general. But yes, also just talking about those action sequences, they're very well done. Overall, I would say they're noticeably much, much, much better as they've gone on.
Oh yes, 100%. You can see the evolution, just the evolution in movies, how they're actually choreographing the action fight scenes now. And see when Jaws grabs Moore by the head, the size of his hands, it looks like he's just gonna crush his head. But I love how he smashes the lamp. The only thing is that when he goes to put them up to Jaws' teeth, instead of Jaws just closing his mouth and turning his head away, he kind of goes like that. He kind of goes as if, go on, hit me in the teeth, and he does. But if I can remember correctly, he kind of kicks Jaws out the window of the train exactly the same way he kicks the henchman out the window in Live and Let Die.
I mean, yeah, you're probably right. They probably just did very similar sequencing. I don't know who does the choreography for this stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of like, okay, we'll do it like this. We did this before, it works, and we'll try it that way. I mean, I love Jaws though. That's just everything he does in these movies. He's great. Is he your favorite henchman in all of these movies?
No, it's my favorite. Well, I wouldn't say he's my favorite.
No.
Well, Red Grant is my favorite.
Yeah, I forgot you can't go any other way. Even though Jaws gets to go in multiple other movies. I mean, he actually gets to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I was a kid, I remember when that movie was on, seeing bits and pieces of it, loving seeing Jaws, because he was called Jaws, and I was mesmerized by the size of him and his teeth and stuff like that. On reflection, I think he's a very memorable henchman. I think he's a very kind of menacing henchman in this movie. We can talk about Moonraker another time when they bring him back. I would say he has to be one of the top villains of Bond villains. No, Red Grant is my favorite because I just prefer it's that because it's Robert Shaw, and I think he's a tremendous actor, but it's also because of the whole tone of From Russia with Love, because of the whole my love for that movie as well. That's going to elevate the henchman, isn't it? There's that old saying, John, the hero's only as good as the villain. And yes, Jaws is a very good villain in this movie, but to me, Red Grant was one of the scariest and most threatening, because he was realistic. It was realistic.
Yeah, we could argue that Jaws isn't very realistic, but he does kind of fit the tone of these movies. But I like how with the actor who his name I'm drawing a blank on, how he commands the scene. Actually, I think he actually is very confident, and he's willing to, like you were saying, how like dust himself off. He doesn't feel weak, and I feel like they protect him in that sense. And I think that's why he doesn't feel, even though he's got the teeth, it doesn't feel too silly to me. Like it floats the line, I think, and that's why I think he's one of my favorite of all time as far as henchmen go.
Yeah, Richard Kiel, as you call the actor.
Yeah, Richard Kiel, he's also in Happy Gilmore, right?
Oh yeah, he makes an appearance in Happy Gilmore. That's right. Yeah. Well, Richard Kiel. Look, I agree with you. He's one of my favorites of all time, and yes, he fits the movie. I'm not saying he's silly at all or whatever. Listen, I'd have Jaws all day long over Knick Knack. How can you go from Knick Knack to Jaws? It's kind of like that. We can't have a small henchman in this movie. Oh, let's get a really big one, right?
We'll go the other way.
Yeah, we'll go get a really big one. So you have Roger Moore trying to deal with the wee Knick Knack, and now he's trying to deal with Big Jaws. So, and I think as well, just explains the mind how he deals with the other stocky henchman who reminds you of Oddjob. He deals with him so easy, whereas like Sean Connery kind of struggled with Oddjob, right? And I don't know if that's what they were going for. So he deals with him so easy. It's like, okay, well, how is he going to deal with this guy now? Knick Knack, we all know he could have dealt with Knick Knack so easy as well. Right, so now how's he going to deal with this guy here? The henchman in Living That Die was more to do with the voodoo and stuff. It was more to do with tricks and things like that. Think about it up to that point. Did Moore really have a henchman or a villain that you thought to yourself, oh, he's in trouble here? He didn't. He was always beating them up. He was always getting the better of them. And so now we have a guy here who's, more than twice the size of him. You think, well, how's he going to deal with this guy? But he deals with him with a magnet.
Hey, you got to get creative with guys like that, because he was really tossing Bond around. Roger Moore really and pales in comparison as far as height and weight to this guy. And I like that. He shouldn't be that easy to beat, which you're right. Knick Knack, obviously we know how that's going to go. But with Jaws, you're going to have to get creative, and he's got metal teeth. What's going to work? Electric.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how when Moore sees the magnet, and he just smiles at him, he just goes, and then Jaws smiles back at him, and then he looks up, he gets him with a magnet. But earlier on in the movie, when he actually punches him, he says to him, his dentist must be a riveter. Something like that, he says. Funny thing as well, the way Jaws is dressed in this at the end. I love the look of Jaws, how he's dressed at the end with the brown trousers and the white shirt with the braces. Daniel Craig is dressed like that in Die Another Day. Right. Sorry, not Die Another Day. What was Craig's last movie he done? No Time to Die. He's dressed like Jaws.
Yeah, well, maybe that movie had a lot of homages, I think, to Dr. No as well. So I wouldn't be surprised. They do like to call back in these newer Bond movies to like the older ones, like the DB12 and all that stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of just the villains and adversaries for Bond, how did you feel about the demise of Stromberg in this movie?
Satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, Moore just didn't take any prisoners with him.
No, and I don't blame him, but it just doesn't have the same exact feel as like a killing the real bad guy. But still, I wanted to see this guy die, so it works out fine, because obviously Jaws doesn't die. Yeah,
and I also feel as well is that if they were to do a Bond movie now, he would have just shot him once down the table, and it would have went on to the next scene. That's one thing I noticed about some of these movies in the 70s and late 60s. They're not showing blood splattering everywhere, and I know he was shooting from a distance, but he put about 4 or 5 bullets into him. Under the table, and then above the table, and again and again. I was like, Jesus, Bond, okay, he's dead.
I mean, he felt like, you know what, this guy, I got to put him down. He's insane. He wants to build a new Atlantis. Like, I got to make sure he doesn't come back. But what did you think of his, like, layer overall, that, like, round, like, how rounded and everything it looked? Like, it was unique looking.
Yeah, I thought it was a really neat design. For some reason, it reminds me of kind of like the octopus that they always kind of use for Spectre.
Yeah, which is funny because can't have Spectre.
Yeah, you can't have it. So I wonder, did they do that on purpose? I mean, it's not exactly like it. It just kind of looks like a giant octopus for some reason. That's what it reminds me of. Or like, if you get the octopus and you see like the wee octopusy symbols and stuff like that, it kind of looks like a black version of that. That could be wrong.
Yeah, I kept thinking, I don't know why, but I just kept thinking Power Rangers every time I'd see that thing come out of the water.
That's right. Yeah, it does. Top of the Power Rangers head. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, it kind of reminded me of that. I mean, I get what they were going for, but I don't know why. Just kind of that weird connection. I did love the very end, the thing that they were in, that underwater thing with the window that they could just, now everyone could see when they come back above water.
Yeah, the way that beeps up, and he says about the champagne. He says about the Dom Perignon, whatever number it is that Bond likes drinking, and he goes, "Oh well," he says, "So I guess Stromberg wasn't that bad of a guy after all."
Yeah. Got good taste.
He's got good taste, and I liked how the song came back at the end, and it was done in a different version, and they'd kind of done that at the end of The Man with the Golden Gun as well, where they brought back the Man with the Golden Gun song, but it was done in a different kind of arrangement.
Yeah, this was kind of done in a very playful way at the very end, really to send people home. Like you could just see the audience clapping along to that at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, and I think doesn't he close the curtains in and the parties in, and it's almost like they're saying, end of show. The curtain closes. That's the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it. And did you notice at the end what it said about James Bond will return?
What did it say this time? Because I was reading about something like this, actually.
It says James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only.
So we talked about this when it's happened again. I can't remember what the two movies were, but it was early with Sean Connery.
Might have been after Thunderball, the other Return in Majesties, and he didn't. He came back for You Only Live Twice, didn't he?
I think you're right. I think that's exactly what it
It
was.
was something like that, if I can remember correctly. But so this one here, it was supposed to be For Your Eyes Only next. But the success of Star Wars meant that they end up making Moonraker instead.
Yep, which we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, we'll get definitely. I'd love to do that at some stage.
Which actually, you know what? Since this is our anniversary episode, I think we've talked enough about The Spy Who Loved Me. What is kind of like on the horizon for this show?
Okay, so we worked out basically movies that we would like to do. We're going to try and put a movie or a podcast out once every 2 weeks, John. Mm-hmm. And we'll tell the audience what's up next for the next few weeks.
Well, we could tell in the next one that we're gonna do, but like, when do you think that we're gonna do another Bond one? Like, because a little peek behind the curtain here, David kind of actually does basically make our schedule. He lets me like give like an input of like he gives me options, but we want to do it for our anniversary. We figured we'd go back to where it all started with Bond, but we're gonna go back to our regular structure after this.
Well, look, I was thinking earlier on about the movies we've got coming up, and we're pretty much I've got everything get down till about November time, and of course when we go into December, we'll maybe want to do a few Christmas pods as well, Christmas movies. So it definitely will probably have to be the new year before we think about doing another Bond. Hope you're not too disappointed about one, John.
No, I'm not. I like always revisiting Bond. I could always revisit Bond, whether it be in the spring, summer, even like towards the winter. I always think about that because I used to watch them around Thanksgiving. So I can wait to watch Moonraker.
Yeah, we'll pencil it in definitely. You know what I mean? Even if it's early next year, or maybe it could be a spring one for next year, we could pencil it in.
Yeah, but that's how far ahead we are, guys. So I believe so. Our next one, if I'm correct, actually, you tell them what our next one is.
Yes, our next movie is going to be Beverly Hills Cop,
which I can't wait for. And you know what? We accidentally timed it really well. I don't know if you realize that.
Because the new one's coming out on Netflix, is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it comes out sometime in July.
Brilliant.
Or end of this month. I can't remember, but we actually timed it out pretty well.
Yeah, we've timed that one out perfectly. And I was working out kind of our schedule earlier on in my head. I meant to write it down. I'll have to send it over to you. And I think that we're actually going to be doing Jaws 3D a few days after it's released on 4K. So
perfect.
Exactly. That kind of worked out because we didn't have this scheduled in, didn't we not? And we didn't have the score one scheduled in.
No, we kind of moved things around because we put in the last episode and this one we wanted to try some new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought we were going to have to take a few movies out, but when we worked out the schedule earlier, I was like, no, it's actually even with these two episodes we've done back to back here, which we didn't have scheduled in, everything's going to work out fine. We're on schedule for the rest of the year to hit kind of like the important kind of seasons. We'll do a few summer movies, and then we'll do a few scary movies in October. We'll pick a few out for then, and then there's a movie we want to do in November, which we didn't get to do last year because I was unwell at the time. We're going to pencil that in, and then that'll bring us up into December when we do a few Christmas ones, John. But also as well, I was thinking earlier too. Have you ordered the Batman book?
Oh no, you have to send me that the link to that so I can't. I forgot I got to order that.
Yeah, because I just wonder, are you still interested in doing the podcast in relation to the Batman book?
Absolutely. Yep. When does that come out again?
October.
October. Yes, I want to pre-order that. I gotta just see. I'm sure there's an Amazon link here, but I gotta make
Yeah.
sure I have that ready to go so we can do that because, as you guys all know, Batman '89, that's a special one for us. And of course, I rewatched it last
Yeah.
week again.
Wonderful, very good, brilliant. Yeah, and just so everybody knows, it's basically that if nobody knows about this, is that there's a novel being released later in the year. I think it's around October time. That takes place between the end of Batman '89 and the start of Batman Returns. So I'd mentioned it to John, and we're going to read it, and then we'll do an episode on the novel and discuss the novel. But it'll probably be in the new year. But by the time we actually do that one, to give us time to read it. I'm a very slow reader.
Yeah, I'm not the fastest reader either, so I'm a good reader. So maybe if you guys want, though, I'll just read it as I'm reading it to you guys on air. I'll set up a chair, fireplace, a glass of whiskey.
That's a good idea. You could do John's reading corner. You could wear like
a night.
It's okay. You could sit, as you say, with a drink beside the open fire, nice wee knitted cardigan on.
Yeah,
your slippers, the dog lying beside you.
The dog is lying beside me. Well, the dog's lying next to you too.
Yeah, she's lying beside. She actually got up earlier and stood up and jumped and spun round because she near fell off earlier. But you think she would have helped herself? She was sitting looking at me with her legs hanging off the sofa, kind of like looking at me as if help.
Dogs are very needy animals.
Yeah, I could tell.
But yeah, so that's what's on the horizon for you guys. We hope you guys enjoyed another episode of us with us. David, is there anything you want to add to it, or are you ready to go?
No, I'm ready to go. I just hope everybody enjoyed going back to our roots here, doing this 007 anniversary episode. I enjoyed doing it. It's just I think that this is one of the essential James Bond movies, and if you're starting off watching James Bond, I think it's a good one to start with. I also want to say hello to my nephew Bobby because he's actually says he's been watching our podcasts, and I did ask him. I did say to him we're doing The Spy Who Loved Me next. Have you watched any of the Bond movies? He said no. So Bobby, give this a watch.
Yeah, Bobby, I think you'll enjoy it. I really do think you'll like it because he's right. And honestly, David, after talking to you, it kind of the movie rose up a little bit for me because I had a little bit of flaws while watching it, but the score and like the main villain are not enough to like persuade me not to like this movie. This is a fantastic James Bond movie with so many great elements, and just watch it for the one-liners too.
Yeah, listen, it's fun. That's one thing that I miss about the recent Bond movies. You come out of them a wee bit kind of depressed, but these movies, you can just switch your brain. That's one thing I rediscovered about Roger Moore when I got the box set. You can just switch your brain off, forget about your day, forget about your troubles, forget about your worries, and they're just enjoyable. And yes, some of his movies are more ridiculous than others. Some of them are more enjoyable than others, but I think this is definitely one of his best ones. I mean, where would you I know we've done our rankings in the earlier Bond pods that we've done, John, but just in relation to Moore, we've watched 3 in the last year. Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, and The Spy Who Loved Me. Where would you rank this one?
I think I would put this at number 1 for him. Although I mean, I've liked all 3. Like, there's not like I even liked the Man with the Golden Gun. Like, thinking back on it, I enjoyed that Funhouse stuff. I also really like Christopher Lee, so like for me, like that kind of helps it a little bit. But Nick Knack, and then we get to this one with Jaws. I truly love Jaws. So the biggest flaw for me is the main villain, the score, but still overall as a film, you get the Lotus in this one. Like it's a
Mhm.
great movie, and I would put this at number one. I'm pretty sure you would say this is one of your favorite overall Bond films.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where we put it on the overall ranking, but I mean, so far, I still think I prefer Live and Let Die. But I mean, this is a close second for me. It's definitely better than The Man with the Golden Gun. Man with the Golden Gun to me has great moments. I think because as I said earlier, I re-listened to our pods, the James Bond ones, just out of curiosity a couple of months ago, and I think what I remember saying about that was that I felt as if they kind of stretched out The Man with the Golden Gun to make it 2 hours long. Whereas, like, if they had edited out a lot of the silly stuff, a lot of the filler, that it would have been a better movie. And for that, it has to be below this movie because I don't feel as if there's anything that needed cut from this movie. Everything just was where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, no, this movie is tight at 2 hours and 5 minutes. Actually, it's perfectly paced. Like you were saying earlier in the pod, how it starts out right away. We're into the movie. It's a plot point. Sometimes with Bond movies, they like to open on a cold open and then have like a semi like B mission that gets resolved right away before we go into the opening credits. No, what happens in the beginning of this movie is an important plot point for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how they were on that submarine at the start on their table, just somebody's under a table, just shaking their table.
That's how you make movies.
I'd see when that camera zoomed in on those two keys, I was like, somebody's under that table just shaking it like that, pretend you're on a submarine, and it's
Shake the table harder. It's not violent enough.
yeah, I mean, it's not exactly like the rings out of Jurassic Park, but listen, they got the shot. But yeah, no, it's straight into it. Whereas I that's why, I mean, like I just can't think at the minute where I would rank this. I'd have to have a wee think about it. Out of the movies I've seen, but I mean,
I
it's
gotta do a little research on how I feel about them all overall again.
yeah, but the thing is that where The Man with the Golden Gun is concerned, it's down to the lower part of my rankings, whereas this would be more towards the top. So for me, yeah, it's. I mean, if you Live and Let Die and The Spy Who Loved Me are two top Bond movies. Man with the Golden Gun's a wee bit meh.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I agree with you. So, even though I do like Christopher Lee and seeing him in the movie, and I like certain scenes, I still think this movie's better than that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, guys, thanks for being here with us on another episode of the Let's Talk podcast with David and I. We hope you enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, share this video, tell all your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around. Hey guys, just popping in at the end of this video. We really hope you enjoyed David and I's episode on The Spy Who Loved Me. And this week we are here. It's Friday, and Friday means it's time for our digital code giveaway. In every single video that we do on Friday, we ask you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you have to do is answer one of those in the comment section below. As long as you do that, you come back to this Tuesday's video. I put your name on a magic wheel. I spin that bad boy 2 times. The 2 names it lands on, they have their choice. The digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. And what am I asking you guys this week? Well, we're talking James Bond. I want to know from you guys 2 James Bond questions. What is your favorite James Bond film, and who is your favorite James Bond actor? And if you don't like James Bond films, just say, hey, not a fan of James Bond films. But either way, leave those answers in the comment section below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video, get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. And if you want to become a channel member, we have that as well. We have a Friends of the Channel tier, we have a Producers tier, we have a Directors tier. Under the Producers tier, that's where you're going to find John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, and Mr. Smelly Potato. Under the Directors tier, that's where you're going to find Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews. Please subscribe to their channels as well, because I promise you, you will not regret it. But if you got no money to throw away, we don't mind at all. We just hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.